Good evening, and thank you for joining us at this important community meeting to discuss the county's efforts to provide and plan for various capital infrastructure needs. My name is Jose Londeros, and I work for the Office of County Administration, where I serve as the Director of Capital Planning and Strategic Performance Management. On behalf of the Commissioners Court and our Chief Administrator, we thank you for joining us here again this evening, including those who are joining us virtually. Before we proceed with this evening's presentation, I'd like to provide a brief overview of the details that will be discussed in this presentation. This evening's presentation will cover a variety of topics and areas relevant to the county's efforts to plan for its upcoming infrastructure needs. The first section of the presentation focuses on outlining exactly what the county does, a majority of which is required by state law, and also some of the relevant financial planning information that has been used to shape some of the recommendations being considered for funding of these projects. The presentation then discusses how over the course of the past several years, the county has developed a comprehensive decision-making process that aligns with the county's strategic plan, individual department priorities, and other areas of critical consideration. We'll then wrap up this evening's presentation by providing you with an overview of what is on the horizon, as well as asking for your feedback on some of the project categories that we will be discussing. We will provide information throughout this presentation, and we'll have an opportunity for questions at the midpoint of the meeting this evening. We will also be managing any input that we may receive from our online attendees via Microsoft Teams. Starting now in this next section, I wanted to provide a brief overview of the county's budget. The county currently manages a budget of approximately $555 million. There are various program funds that collectively make up the county's total budget. You can see here, for example, that about 6% of the county's entire budget is dedicated toward debt service payments, which are effectively the county's payments for any outstanding loans that it has taken out to finance various projects in the past. 4 out of every $5 in the county's budget is designated toward general revenue or general fund expenditures, which collectively make up a majority of the county's operational expenditures. At just shy of $444 million, this program fund is critical to understand, and so on this next slide here, we begin to go over that. The 3 largest categories in the county's general fund are related to the administration of justice, public safety, and general government services. These 3 categories alone make up about 86% of the county's entire general fund. This is an important detail to remember because it does significantly limit the amount of resources that the county can dedicate toward other initiatives. These services, offices, and responsibilities are largely mandated by the state of Texas to be administered by the county at the local level. A significant amount of the capital needs that have been identified through the county's most recent planning efforts are directly related to these core services. To go a little bit deeper into each of these areas, these next 2 slides provide more information. And these 3 areas on the slide here, again, comprise about 86% of the county's entire budget. The administration of justice includes funding for all district and county courts, as well as the various law offices that the county operates, including the district attorney, county attorney, and public defender's office. General government, on the other hand, includes a variety of elected official offices that are charged with critical record-keeping tasks for the public at large, including the county and district clerks, who maintain court case information, in addition to various vital statistics, including birth certificates, marriage licenses, and other public documents. The public safety category comprises the entire sheriff's office, which includes maintenance and operations of 2 detention facilities, one located in downtown across the street from the county courthouse, and the other on East Montana. In addition to their patrol bureau, which has countywide jurisdiction for law enforcement. The Juvenile Probation Department is also funded under this category via a partnership between the state of Texas and county. The remaining 4 program areas within the budget include the county's Public Works Department that is focused on management of all county facilities and properties, including various assets throughout the community, including the Fabens Airport and the Tornillo Port of Entry. The Culture and Recreational area, which is the smallest program of the entire general fund, includes funding for regional and local parks, including Escárate Park, our community's largest park at just over 400 acres, as well as other neighborhood park facilities. Health and welfare comprise a variety of health and safety service lines for the entire population of this community, as well as focused support service to individuals who need temporary emergency assistance, as well as our veteran population. Lastly, the resource development category includes funding for our economic development department, who works on historic promotion events, as well as the agricultural extension agent, an initiative that is jointly funded between the county and the state of Texas via the Texas A&M University system. Over the course of the past 30 years, the county has strived to provide the highest level of financial transparency and excellence for our community. This is reflected not only in some of the policy decisions that have been enacted and adopted by the Commissioners Court in recent years, but also through recognition of various external agencies at the national and state level. The Office of the Texas Comptroller awards transparency stars to agencies in the state that have demonstrated excellence in public financial transparency efforts, and the county has consistently received these awards from the Comptroller's office. Additionally, the National Government Finance Officers Association recognizes agencies who prepare budget documents of the very highest quality with a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. The county has consistently received this award since its inception. These outside recognitions are intended to demonstrate the county's commitment to ensuring the transparent and efficient management of public funding for a variety of needs. Additionally, the Office of the Comptroller also maintains comparisons of current debt loads between similar units of local government. This chart shows the debt load of the county as an agency in comparison to other similar Texas counties. The comparison includes urban and suburban counties with similar populations, as well as other border counties. Of the 10 counties shown here, El Paso County has the second lowest debt load of any other county in the group. Again, while this will be discussed in the next few slides, it is important to remember that the county, at the direction of the Commissioners Court, have worked to develop debt financing scenarios that continue to minimize the impact to individual taxpayers' property bills by strategically timing any debt issuances in the near future. Closing out this section, we wanted to provide some information about comparative tax rates in our community. This dollar bill illustrates that at a local level, how your taxpayer dollars are paid to El Paso County compared to other taxing entities for the past couple of years. For the past 3 years, the county has comprised approximately 15 to 16% of your total tax bill. And the county has strived to be financially proactive for several years through various financial and operational planning efforts to continue to operate as efficiently and effectively as possible. The following section now begins to discuss how the county has developed a project prioritization schedule, which was developed to ensure that all capital project needs were identified and evaluated using a very thoughtful and deliberate process, which will also be explained in the next slide. This section also offers insight into some of the proposed financing methods that are currently being considered by the Commissioners Court at this time. In order to prioritize all of the projects and all the needs that are submitted by county departments throughout the past few years, this exercise involves scoring each of those submitted projects against 6 individual categories. These categories, shown here on this figure, ensure that each project was in alignment with the county's strategic plan, the policy direction of the Commissioners Court, as well as the priorities of the individual submitting department. An important component that was evaluated for most projects was also whether or not that project had the capacity to either generate revenue, reduce operational costs, or was a necessary replacement project. These necessary replacement projects are the types of projects that include replacing outdated equipment or materials that have met or exceeded their useful life. An example of a project like this is a roof replacement at the county's juvenile probation department. This analysis and exercise provided insight into what the most urgent needs were for our agency. And to evaluate the county's needs, Our office relied on a large amount of data that had previously been collected by both our budget department as well as Office of County Administration. There have been several calls for projects in recent years where departments had an opportunity to identify needs, provide estimated costs, and other supporting and relevant information associated with individual projects. These call for projects were then aggregated into a single master list. When we completed this exercise, the county's total need for projects exceeded $700 million. And as a reminder, the county's total budget in fiscal year 2023 is approximately $555 million. Projects were then grouped into several priority categories. The county developed the following high priority project categories to help guide further planning efforts to meet various capital needs in each of these respective areas. These categories are eligible to be funded using various finance tools that will be discussed in the coming slides. The first category is public safety infrastructure, which includes various needs at the county's downtown detention and jail annex facilities, including the replacement of critical security and building infrastructure that has met or exceeded its useful life. Additionally, projects also include major replacement of basic infrastructure for the county's juvenile probation department, including updating the facility security system, sewer infrastructure, and also replacing an aging roof and accompanying HVAC system. This category also includes providing for the replacement of the aging and undersized Office of Medical Examiner facility. The second category, new county facilities, included the design and construction of new facilities aimed at increasing access to various county services and departments directly in the community via new county annex facilities, thereby expanding the existing annex footprint that is in place throughout our region. Third are regional and local park projects, which include major expansions and renovations at the county's regional parks, including Escalante Park and the county sports park, in addition to improvements to neighborhood parks, serving some of the most underprivileged and underserved communities in our county. The fourth category of projects seeks to identify improvements and renovations to existing county facilities to ensure that these facilities continue to provide the highest level of service to the public, including facilities like the county courthouse or existing neighborhood county annexes. The county's efforts to increase regional transportation investments also emerged as an area of significant capital needs, including major investment at the Fabens Airport to continue to support increased general aviation activity at the facility, as well as furthering the partnership with UTEP's Aerospace Center to create an aerospace research hub and pipeline for our local engineering students and broader community. The sixth category deals with improvements to various historical assets and properties owned by the county, including those which promote heritage tourism along El Paso's Mission Trail. The county is also evaluating how to continue to make investments in security and technology to provide enhanced customer service and access to services throughout our community. The last category seeks to further the county's commitment to providing access to water and wastewater infrastructure in the colonias and underserved communities across the county. These categories were developed for planning purposes only and collectively represent about $570 million worth of capital needs, a dollar amount that far exceeds the capacity the county has to fund these projects. But this strategic document does provide a vision for the county in terms of capital planning, which allows us to explore a variety of funding options. Given how vast the needs are for the county's capital programs, the county is incredibly committed to identifying supplemental funding to help implement a number of these critical projects. In evaluating a number of federal grant programs, the county has determined that there is limited funding availability for a number of building-related infrastructure, which has emerged as one of our highest priority areas at this time. There are some funding opportunities, I should say, for improvements to water utilities, as well as facilities that might serve rural communities. But that also remains rather limiting when we consider the fact that our county is largely urban and suburban in nature. The county remains committed to evaluating these funding opportunities at the federal level, especially given recent legislation that has provided a significant influx of federal grant opportunities via the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. At the state level, there are a number of existing partners that the county has previously worked with on issues related to transportation, water utilities, as well as parks. And while these agencies continue to be options to fund a number of the projects identified by this exercise, they oftentimes can be limiting in the amount of funding that is available in any given fiscal year. Still, they remain a critical area of funding for the county to pursue aggressively to help reduce the amount of funding that might be necessary via a debt issuance. The last area to consider financing some of these large capital needs is debt. There are currently 3 options that the county could pursue to finance the needs identified in the county's major capital plan. The first are tax anticipation notes, which are approved by the Commissioners Court to finance the construction of a public work and any related costs for that project. These notes offer shorter-term financing and are paid off within a 7-year time period. The next finance options are certificates of obligation, which have been recently discussed by the Commissioners Court and are limited to projects which are considered to be designated infrastructure, as defined in state law. Eligible projects includes those which contribute to the renovation or improvement of an existing building or facility, projects that are funded in partnership with the state via financial assistance program, or projects which include improvements to public safety or judicial facilities. These are also approved by the Commissioners Court. The last finance tool are general obligation bonds, which can fund anything identified in either the tax anticipation notes or certificates of obligation, and are approved by voters in an election. The broader scope of this issuance means the county can ask voters to consider projects which contribute to the quality of life or fund the construction of new buildings and facilities throughout the community. Now moving into some financial slides, which provide some additional context about the timing of this discussion with regard to issuance of debt. The county has been planning for this point in time for the past 10 years through management of its finances and debt service payments. This graph illustrates that in fiscal years 2024 and 2025, the county will have completed paying off a number of loans, providing us an opportunity to address some of the priority project categories just discussed. You can see here on the exhibit that the bar graph on the farthest left side of the slide is fiscal year 2023 and the total amount of the county's budget that's dedicated toward debt service. And in 2024 and 2025, the next 2 fiscal years, that orange arrow demonstrates that there's a significant drop-off or decrease in the amount of funding that's necessary to fund our debt service payments, which means that the county could consider timing a debt issuance at the same time to actually not affect, to the greatest extent possible, the county's tax rate. In exploring the structuring of future debt issuance, the court has capped the amount of revenue to be used for debt payments in an effort to ensure that the tax rate remains as flat as possible. That revenue stream is shown on the orange line in the graph. Additionally, the county's financial advisor and staff have worked to develop a financial forecast to help evaluate how much borrowing capacity the county has given this revenue limit, which is shown as the orange oval on the graph. This process is incredibly similar to one that you might go through with your own personal finances to determine how much your household might be able to afford on a major purchase. Based on this exercise, it has been identified that the county can consider issuing up to $100 million in debt in fiscal year 2023 to address some of our most urgent and critical infrastructure needs. As you can see on the figure, the green bars represent a debt issuance in 2023, all of which are below the revenue cap we previously described as the orange line. As the years go by, you can see those green bars start to fall significantly below the orange line, which also represents an opportunity for the county to consider financing other essential infrastructure needs in the very immediate future. After completing evaluation of the finances, as well as the project merits, the county is currently considering 2 major debt issuances in the next several years. The first of which would be issued in 2023 to finance critical public safety and Tier 1 essential public infrastructure. The timing of this is aligned with the reduction in debt payments that the county will experience beginning next fiscal year, as we previously described 2 slides ago. Additionally, the county is evaluating whether this issuance could be done in combination with a tax rate reduction below the existing revenue cap we previously described. This issuance is the program recently considered and discussed by the Commissioners Court. The court will be updated on this issuance and consider options at this coming Monday's meeting on December 12th. The second issuance on the horizon is in 2024 and is a proposed general obligation bond election. Voters would be able to provide input and consider funding quality of life and other essential public infrastructure projects in this issuance. The timing of this is also aligned with the reduction in our debt payments beginning in fiscal year 2025, meaning that if approved, the debt service would remain level and is not projected to change the existing tax rate for debt for El Paso County. Additionally, this bond program would include a significant public outreach and community engagement element to include the organization of a bond development and advisory committee. The county may begin working on details of this issuance in the coming months. Using the previously described prioritization process, along with the financial information for the forecast of tax issuance in the coming years, staff developed the following project prioritization calendar, which includes total project amounts calculated to be approximately $100 million that fall into the public safety infrastructure, regional transportation, modernizing existing county facilities, regional park renovation, and technology categories. These next few slides begin to provide further detail and insight into each of the individual projects that are included in each of those higher level categories. Beginning with public safety infrastructure, we have the construction phase of the Office of the Medical Examiner. Again, this is an outdated and undersized facility, the design of which is currently underway, and if funded through some funding in the near future, the county would be able to implement and open doors on a new facility within the next 3 years. You can see also all of the DDF and jail annex projects refer to detention or jail facility improvements, which include modernizing the intake of the downtown detention facility, which is where inmates are being processed and transferred from law enforcement who makes the arrest into the sheriff's office and transferring custody into them as they are booked into the county jail, as well as making a number of critical facility infrastructure upgrades, including fire alarm, door systems, and electrical panel replacements. Again, these projects are all necessary to ensure that these facilities continue to remain in good standing with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards, and again, are services that are mandated by the state of Texas for the county to administer. Included in this list are also improvements that we outlined to the Juvenile Justice Center for our Juvenile Probation Department, which include improvements to the security, roof, and sewer systems. We grouped two of those categories together on this slide, and that's regional transportation as well as technology. The first project is the reconstruction of Ascension Road, a road in East El Paso County that connects Horizon City to East Montana. This road has undergone significant maintenance issues and reconstruction in recent years and has met its useful life and needs to be replaced. And so the project would include the reconstruction of this roadway. Again, this is another example of a project where the county has already begun the design and is now looking to ensure that we can complete the construction of that. The next three projects all relate to the Fabens Airport and include the construction of various hangar facilities to support the partnership the county's developed with UTEP and its Aerospace Center, as well as hangars. The last one is an investment in planning and permitting software, which is a solution that would help increase access to residents to be available online. It's a best practice for planning departments to have this type of infrastructure available, and this solution would ensure that residents would not have to come to the courthouse or downtown for access to permitting, but would be able to access that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week via the internet. These next projects include investments in county facilities to modernize them and ensure that we're as operationally effective as we can be in our existing facilities, including the county courthouse. You can see here that they include making some improvements to the Manny Martinez Annex outside of Escalante Park, which the tax office hosts its operations there. Also making some HVAC investments for office space for our Human Resources Department near the county courthouse downtown. a variety of investments to make modifications to space within the county courthouse, including a major renovation of the 5th floor to support our judiciary and public defender's office, as well as employee space and other conference room space for our council of judges. With respect to the regional park essential renovations, these are renovations that are aimed at not expanding recreational area or making recreational investments in the county parks, but for the most part, really focused on remediating and renovating equipment that is existing today that has met its useful life. The first 2 projects are actually remediation of the Western Playland site at Escalante Park. There's a number of issues with that area that need to be addressed to ensure that that space can be programmable and usable by the County Parks Department and by the public. And so those are just continuations of those remediation efforts. Also looking at ensuring that the entrance to the park is modified to accommodate increased use of the facility and ensure that it's ADA compliant and it's also safe for individuals to who are attending the park and driving into the park, as well as those who might be on a multimodal, either biking in or walking into the park. You can also see that want to also make some similar entrance enhancements and also modernize some security elements of the entrance to the county sports park located off Zaragoza, and also increase access to some paving areas in the park to, again, continue to support existing users in that facility and not require them to park in random spaces throughout the facility. That concludes the informational section of this presentation. Again, we appreciate your time and participation in our meeting. At this point, if there are any questions from anyone, if you're on Teams and you want to type a question in or just provide some comments, you're welcome to do that. You can also unmute yourself, raise your hand if you're in the meeting, and provide that. In the event that you'd like to provide feedback and would rather just send us a note, you can do so by sending us an email to that address there, capitalplanning@epcounty.com. That email address is monitored by our staff daily. We're especially paying attention to those messages coming in now, given the public meetings that we're holding, and we'll make sure to provide you with a response. If you have a question, would like some more information on any of those projects, get back to you as soon as we can. Great. That concludes the survey questions. Again, I know it's not an exhaustive list of everything that was discussed, but it's important feedback for the county to have so that we can continue to understand how we develop and refine our capital process moving forward. Again, the next steps, it's immediately on the horizon, is a presentation that will be made to Commissioners Court on Monday, December 12th. The most immediate items that are being discussed for financing are really those public safety and essential public infrastructure. Those items are mission critical for a lot of the departments that are in need of those, and so that is the bulk of what will be discussed at the December 12th meeting. With respect to the remaining projects, the county has just begun to explore how we will structure any future debt issuances that go out to the voters, including a number of those initiatives, which include quality of life enhancements. So if you have an interest in following this, please email us. We'll make sure that we start to put together a distribution list so that we can provide regular updates to the public as we hit new milestones in all of our planning efforts. Well, with that, this concludes this evening's listening session and meeting. Again, thank you for your time and your effort in this process and assisting us, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you in the future. Hope you have a very good evening and happiest of holidays. Thank you.